But first tonight, an explosive new film uncovers the shocking world of Jesus Camp. This is a new documentary that goes inside a children's summer camp where kids denounce abortion, science, and the rest of the world in the name of Christianity. The film's about to open wide in theaters, and we'll talk with Pastor Becky Fischer and radio host Mike Papantonio, who are both featured in the film in just a moment. But first, here's CNN's Soledad O'Brien with the story for Showbiz Tonight.
Young children weep for salvation, speak in tongues, call for an end to abortion. All scenes from a Bible camp in North Dakota featured in a new and controversial documentary. At its heart is Pastor Becky Fischer.
This means war! Are you a part of it or not?
1/3 of that 6.7 billion people are children under the age of 15. 1/3. Where should we be putting our efforts? Where should we be putting our focus? I'll tell you where our enemies are putting it. They're putting it on the kids.
Her goal, to bring children into the army of God and make sure they don't stray later in life. The campers seem to hear the call.
We're being trained to go out and train others to be God's army and to do God's will, what He wants you to do.
I feel like we're kind of being trained to be warriors, only in a much funner way.
Not all Christians agree with Fisher's approach.
The word learn is different than indoctrinate. God gave us a brain. God gave us the freedom to choose, and learning is part of that choice.
The filmmakers say they didn't intend to make a political movie, but that's where the subject matter took them.
He has surrounded himself with spirit-filled people. Pray in the Spirit over him. Do some warfare over him. Some warfare.
The influential Reverend Ted Haggard, featured in the film, has since denounced it. But Becky Fischer supports it, seeing it as yet another way to reach a new audience.
And here with me now is the woman you just saw, Pastor Becky Fischer of the Kids on Fire Summer Camp, and Air America radio host Mike Papantonio. They're both featured in the film Jesus Camp, and I appreciate you both being here.
Thank you.
This is going to shock a lot of people, Becky. You say in the film extreme liberals who look at this should be quaking in their boots. I don't think they'll be the only ones. Now, I have to say, I do believe everyone is entitled to raise their children with the teachings of their own religion. Preaching to 7-year-olds about abortion, I'm having a hard time understanding how that's not crossing a line.
Well, children are really capable of understanding a whole lot more than what we give them credit for, but it's not that I do that every single day. It happened to have been a prayer meeting. The filmmakers happened to be there. A guest speaker asked to come and speak on that subject. But having said that, it is an issue that is very strong in the charismatic and evangelical community, and what we've looked at it is that we're teaching children to value human life.
But even that being said, that children understand things perhaps at a younger age than we give them credit for. 7 years old or even younger. Come on.
The days of telling children that babies come by a stork is a long time gone, at least in the community that I'm from. Those children know that there's a baby in mommy's tummy, and they understand when that baby dies. And so it is a concept that, there's a lot of language we do not use with children that would be totally inappropriate. But the whole concept of valuing human life, that's where we're going.
Mike, we certainly know that our religion can influence the way we vote. And certainly in the film, we're seeing this army of kids who are basically being raised to and trained in beliefs that they're going to bring to the voting booth with them one day. And I just want to mention a couple of things I'm talking about. Global warming is not a problem. Actual words in the film. Creationism is the only possible answer. Science doesn't mean anything. Now, you've provided some good balance in this film. That's kind of a problem, isn't it?
Yeah, I think this is a smart film because what it does is it raises the discussion beyond Becky's camp. Becky's camp is one part of this film, but I think the bigger discussion is that nowadays you have a movement of fundamental, well, I call them political fundamentalists. They're not just evangelicals. Evangelicals do great work all over this world every day. They clothe people, they house people, but you have the Ted Haggard fellow who's trying to distance himself from this movie for good reason. The reason he wants to distance himself is because he realizes that this is a political movement. And, you know, the problem is anytime religion attaches itself to a political movement, politics are always changing. They're coming, they're going, they're rising, and they're falling. And when a political movement attaches itself to that a religious movement, then what ends up happening is both rise and fall, and both in the end lose. And the problem here is there's no way that you can look at what's happening in American politics. Look around what's just happened in the last year. You had a North Carolina preacher tell his congregation that the people in his congregation who didn't support George Bush, didn't vote for George Bush's war, that by the way, at the time, everybody was clear on the fact it was based on lies. But he said to them, if you don't do those things, you're not welcome in my congregation. He ran Democrats away, he ran independents away, and he ran Republicans away. Just last week, you had another one of these not evangelicals, but fundamentalists, political fundamentalists, saying that telling his congregation, his followers, that they should support candidates only if that candidate supported torture of war prisoners. Now, the lines have been crossed.
Well, there's an entanglement going on there, and bringing it back to the camp,
Sure.
Becky, we're seeing kids praying for righteous judges. I appreciate that you and the people that follow what you follow want righteous judges. But again, all due credit to young kids, they're praying at the age of 7 years old for righteous judges. They don't know what that means.
I'm not sure that that is fair. I think children are... Listen to the kids that are on that film. Those kids are very sharp. They're very articulate. They know what they're talking about. Do they have the full concept of everything? Probably not. Could they argue against myself or Mike? Absolutely not. But they do have a basic concept.
Whenever I run into a non-Christian or something, I always, there's always something that doesn't seem right. There's always something that makes my spirit feel yucky,
Now, it seems to me he was taught to feel that way. Somewhere along the way, he was taught to feel that way, and that to me seems more like being taught prejudice and not love.
Okay, I also think that being able to get inside his head, okay, and know even what the question was that was given to him, in order to make that response. We don't teach that every single person is going to make you feel yucky. He had to have been referring to something specific. The way it came out, it sounds like everybody that he ever encounters that isn't a Christian makes him feel yucky. I know that's not the truth.
I wasn't intending either just to point out to take anything out of context there, but that was a sentiment that I felt as I'm watching this film.
But I know good and well, for instance, the filmmakers do not claim to be born-again Christians. I know Levi's spirit is not making him feel yucky around them. So it was something that he has probably encountered people. It could have been, I don't know, a drunk on the street. I don't know what he would have been referring to.
There's an interesting thing about this movie. Again, I come back to the political side, the mixture of religion and politics. And when you really take a look at this, the Ted Haggards that are up on the podium, what I call the political religious podium right now.
Right. Ted Haggard, for people who aren't aware, an evangelical preacher.
What are they telling their kids? What are they telling these children? What are they telling their followers? They're preaching the word of division, of not inclusion, but of excluding parts of our society. They're focusing on wedge issues like same-sex marriage, abortion, stem cell research, issues that may be important to them. But at the end of the day, and I don't have any problem with their politics, but don't take those politics and impose them on my family. Let me give you the best example I can. There's a part of Christianity that says, look, we don't want to have blood transfusions. For whatever religious reasons, they don't allow their followers to have blood transfusions. Right. Now, that's fine. If they want to teach that generation to generation, don't get a blood transfusion, that's okay. But when it comes to imposing that on the rest of this country by way of a Supreme Court judge, by way of a president that never has gotten exactly how dangerous it is as far as what he's doing, but when you start imposing all of that on everybody else, it becomes problematic.
Well, and speaking of imposition, because the thing that came back to me, and you even said something about this in the film, it seems like there is a great deal of independent thought being taken away from these kids who seem to be scared in a lot of ways or shamed in a lot of ways. I only have 30 seconds here to saying the kinds of things they say and responding in the way that they do.
Children, we aren't guilting them or shaming them in any way. What you're seeing is little segments of what's going on. They're condensing a 4-hour sermon into 5 minutes, and so you can't possibly see everything that's going on. And the political side of thing, I promise you, is like a snapshot, an entire photo album of what we do with children. In no way represents who we are.
Becky, I got to leave it there, Mike. I appreciate you joining us. I think people should see this film, if for no other reason that it needs to be talked about. And the film is called Jesus Camp. It'll be opening nationwide next Friday.